All we've got to do now is to start pumping.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Whitman, but we are joined by a guest. Haven't had a guest on the podcast in a while, but Zach Shomler, you guys probably know him. Strong Opinion Sports, another great YouTube channel doing football, well, a lot of just sports content in general. But welcome in, Zach. Everybody go check out his channel if you, for some reason, haven't already. But how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. You did well. I know the intro, we were talking before we started. It's always the most awkward, weird thing to like intro another person, or like we do it by ourselves all the time. And so it's always weird and hard to know what to do. And then also let's hope it goes well, because I'd love to do this more. I think you're awesome. You're one of my favorite people in the space. And I don't want to jinx it, but I think I'm very excited for today.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. And we had a conversation last week as well. If you guys haven't gone and listened to our conversation last week, it was a great one. And yeah, I'm definitely thinking we got to make this a more consistent thing, because I really do enjoy talking ball with you. And we've got a lot of great topics ahead of us today. We're basically just going to kind of bounce around some of the bigger free agent stuff, some of the winners, maybe some of the teams that are a little bit harder to understand what's going on so far. I did just want to say, because there's going to be a lot of people saying, what do you think of this signing? What you didn't talk about this team, that team. There's a lot of teams that we're not going to talk about today. Where I'm going with this is, if your team got a good offensive lineman, my take is good job, because I've been tagged 100 times. Like, Giants, we got Mark Lewinsky. I haven't heard your take yet. Or the Bengals, we got Alex Kappa. What's your take? And it's like, we spend so much time leading into free agency saying, hopefully this team can fix their offensive line through free agency, because it's one of the harder positions to fill out. And it's the most competitive group in free agency every year. So if you got a good offensive lineman in free agency, my take is good job. So I just want to get that out of the way. Go ahead.
We could highlight one. The Alex Kappa one to the Bengals is a much needed answer. They got a guard. It's great. They stole him from Tom Brady's team. And the Bengals,
extra plus.
They're the only offensive lineman I talked about, because it's like, well, they really needed one. Their quarterback was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL, still made it to the Super Bowl somehow. And for years, it's felt like the Bengals were just horribly run. And whether accurate or not, it feels like things are changing there, as Mike Brown has gotten older and given up control to his daughter and Duke Tobin. And it seems like things are really turning around in Cincinnati, which we just need that to happen in Dallas with the Cowboys. Jerry Jones needs to get old and senile and give up control, and then someone else can actually run the Cowboys in a good way.
Oof. Shots fired. we're 5 minutes in and you're already going at Jerry Jones. Yeah, totally. And I think Burrow's kind of, I think, pulling some strings as well. I think he's taken some notes out of the Brady playbook, the Russell Wilson playbook, the Rodgers playbook, and saying, he's coming in right away and being like, I'm the dude, like, you got to give me help or I'm going to be mad. And they're doing a good job to cater to him. And I think the Jamar Chase pick was also kind of showing some respects to Burrow as well. So that's a very good by the Bengals organization. But I want to start the first team. I guess we ruined that by doing the Bengals first, but oh well. The Dolphins not coming in first place is something they're used to. So we will talk about the Miami Dolphins. And, you know, they're one of the teams, they signed an offensive lineman. They got Connor Williams. I think extending Emmanuel Ogbah was a good move for them. He was probably their most impactful defensive player last year. But I just kind of want to hear your opinion on Tua's outlook for this year, and what are your expectations for the Dolphins? Because that is a team that I have been very critical over the last few years. So I wanted to get a different kind of lens on that team.
Sure. First of all, I love their head coach, Mike McDaniels. He's very authentic and different. If you ever listen to him talk, I know this is not football, but you're like, he's just a different kind of dude that I think is very refreshing in the football world. He's weirdly honest, and we'll see if that stays. I think it will. Like when they have if they're 0-6 to start the year, is he still going to be firing off fun, quirky answers? We'll see. I think he is. I think that's part of his shtick and part of who he is, and that is attracting people to want to play there. I think his very clearly mission is to fix that offense. The defense, I think he likes and is fine and good enough. I think he's starting with the running game. They brought in Connor Williams. They brought in Chase Edmonds from Arizona. They just signed Raheem Mostert to a 1-year deal. So 2 running backs and an offensive lineman. And I think the philosophy there is we got to build the running game, and that will help too. They also brought in Cedric Wilson. These are not flashy, really big moves. These are not like J.C. Jackson, Von Miller. Wow. These are very solid starting players that are going to contribute. And are they flashy? No. Are they better than what they have? Yes. And so they're upgrades, and they're small quality moves that are building towards helping your young quarterback get better. I mean, they really only had Jalen Waddle last year. If you watch them, he was the only receiver putting up production. I don't know how Cedric Williams adds to that. I think they need another receiver in the draft, but they are trying to fill out their offensive side of the football. Particularly, they want to have a better running game.
Yeah, I think what they're doing is eliminating any excuses. It's very similar to what the Giants are doing with Daniel Jones this year, where you've spent this big pick on him and you need to eliminate all excuses for the quarterback so you can get a fair answer as to, is he your guy? And that's, Dolphins fans don't like that because a lot of Dolphins fans really believe in Tua. But I honestly believe the quarterback they signed, Teddy Bridgewater, is currently a better quarterback than Tua. I don't think there's a single, string of tape you could put together, statistics, analytics. There's no data point at all that would tell you that Tua is currently better than even Teddy Bridgewater, who was a free quarterback signing. So if you can't come out of this season feeling good that he's at least better than Teddy, but you hope he's much more than that. You hope he's, putting you in positions to, take over late in games and obviously get into the playoffs and all that stuff. So I do agree with the moves they've made. I think the system they're putting in place makes a ton of sense. You can lean into his mobility, his accuracy over the middle of the field. That is the Shanahan offense. They're bringing in Raheem Mostert and a better opportunity to run the ball better. Cedric Wilson, a good option over the middle of the field, who's a really good run after catch threat. They bring Gesicki back, so you're eliminating any second guessing after Tua this season.
One thing was really frustrating watching. So let me back up. I love Tua as a person. I live in Hawaii. I love his family. I like who they are. I've heard good stories about them. They're awesome. I am a big fan of him, like rooting for him as a person. I also can be honest about him. He has to do better. He has to prove he's actually capable of being an NFL quarterback. And we haven't seen anything good enough from him so far. So the jury's out on Tua. Let's start there, to be clear. Now, one thing that was really frustrating watching Miami last year and even 2 years ago was they ran really basic vanilla concepts that I think often kind of put Tua in handcuffs, where they're like, hey, we're running 4 hitches. And you're like, what? That's it? They're on like concepts that they have like literally 2 receivers running downfield. And maybe part of that's because he could protect him. Maybe I don't know what it was, but he had no options. He wasn't being asked to do anything difficult. He was given 2 receivers to pick from, and neither option was very good. It was very bland. It was weird. I didn't understand it. I didn't like it. They clearly didn't trust him. I'm hopeful that Mike McDaniels is going to give him some freedom and actually trust him, because we're not going to learn how good he is if you don't actually give him, like, how do I put this? I don't want to say rope to hang himself, but you have to like give him an opportunity to show what he can do. If he fails, that's fine. But I'd rather like give the guy a shot before we just cancel him.
Absolutely.
Good.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great point. Like Tua struggled, but also offensive line was terrible. And this scheme point is so important. Like they totally protected him. It was RPO after RPO, and just, they didn't run an NFL offense. They looked like, a low-level college team going up against Alabama, trying not to get blown out every week.
His offense was more complex at Alabama, literally. Like he did more advanced concepts in college than he did in the NFL so far.
Easily. And mentally, he can handle that stuff. Absolutely. Yeah.
So one other thing,
Tua in my mind next year. I'm going to try and just see what he's got this year.
Yeah. One other thing I lost it. Oh, he needs to be better when there are bodies around him. I thought there were times where he had pressure in his face and was just missing throws. Like where, look, he had a horrible offensive line. I think part of why he wasn't the most sacked quarterback last year was because A, he got the ball out of his hands really quickly. B, he didn't play the whole year. But he was in the conversation with Cincinnati as one of the teams that had the worst offensive lines in the NFL. But one thing he needs to work on personally is when he'll have guys. He had Jalen Waddle multiple times crossing the field wide open, and a guy would be coming to hit him. He would step into the throw and totally miss. And you're like, look, you have to hit that throw. Part of the agreement you make as a quarterback is you're going to take shots to deliver the football to people who are open. And there were multiple times where he was not good with pressure in his face. And that's something that is not a scheme thing. That's something that is not among the coaching staff. That's him needing to be better. And that's what I'm looking for this year is, can he be better with pressure in his face?
I love it. Keep an eye out for that. All right. We are going to move on to the Baltimore Ravens, who I think are just objectively crushing it. And they pretty much crush it like every year. But I just want to have like a Baltimore Ravens, Eric DeCosta love fest here and just talk about how it's crazy that they do this every year. They like maximize value so well. Go ahead.
Well, it's also amazing, I believe Ozzie Newsome, their previous general manager, stepped down a while back, and they just seamlessly handed off from one GM to another. Like he was an amazing general manager. He retires, and the next guy's just been killing it right after him. It's like, wow, like didn't even miss a beat. It's really impressive to me, the organizational structure there, and clearly whatever Ozzie Newsome built and the structure beneath him has really done well. And then they just kept that machine going. It's been incredible.
Yeah, that's really well said. So the moves they made kind of started with potentially like the best free agent signing, Marcus Williams. Like we were both just kind of bouncing off like who were some of your favorite signings, and we both went straight to Marcus Williams. He was definitely at the top of my list.
Well, can I say, we'll go through the list, but the Preston Williams thing, if I can real quick, is it's amazing when you look at his capability. He's a great pass defender. He also, when you compare his money and contract and situation to Jamal Adams.
You're talking about Marcus Williams? Sorry, you
Marcus,
said Preston Williams. Yeah. Just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Preston,
yeah, okay.
Who is that? I think I'm getting Preston Smith because I had my notes backwards.
Yeah.
This one's Darius Smith. I've been a mess today. Marcus Williams is a safety who can play all over the field. He's great in coverage. And he's cheaper than Jamal Adams was for Seattle, not only contract-wise, but also Seattle gave up 2 first-round picks to get Jamal Adams. It's a good value for a good player. I think 5 years, $70 million. And it's so much cheaper than Jamal Adams was. It's not even funny. And he's a much better player, in my opinion. So it's like, wow, what a great signing.
And he totally fills a big need because they're moving on from Wink Martindale. They're hiring the Michigan defensive coordinator, but it does sound like, and I can't remember his name, but
look it up.
He was in Baltimore before he went to Michigan. So it sounds like he's going to kind of go back to the roots of the Baltimore defense, which is a lot of cover 1, even cover 0, man, press, get in the receiver's face, blitz, and 5, even 6 guys, and then to have that free safety over the top as a guy that can take risks, make plays, but also protect over the top, not give up big plays. So that is Marcus Williams in a nutshell, is that rangy free safety. He's not Earl Thomas. He's not Ed Reed, but he is in that role and does it at he's one of the 5 best rangy free safeties in the league. And it's just a seamless addition, great value, like A+ signing all around. Did you get the name?
Yeah, it's Mike McDonald and MAC, like Mac Donald, who it's so interesting. I wonder if Jim Harbaugh's brother, was like, take this guy, develop him, and we're going to steal him back in a couple of years. That's what it really feels like. They just sent him there to be developed. Yep.
Basically. You got to love it. I mean, then they also, I want to reiterate the maximizing of value that they do in these little in between the margin things. And they do this so often, especially with that edge rush position. Zadarius Smith is back after they got a big 3rd round compensatory pick. They probably spent some like 10-year, they probably drafted like, I don't know who they spent with that pick, but it was probably like Ben Cleveland, who's going to start on their offensive line for 10 years. And then he comes back 2 years later after the team that signed him can't keep that contract. They did the same thing with Pernell McPhee. He came back, had a couple good years for him. They just developed these guys, both Za'Darius, Pernell McPhee. They were mid-round picks that just fit their system. And Matthew Judon's another one, went to the Patriots last year. It's just crazy. And Judon will probably be back on the Ravens in like 3 years. And it's just so smart. And I'm pretty sure that Za'Darius Smith doesn't factor into any compensatory pick formula as well because he was cut. So it's just like all these little margins that they're winning on. And the Morgan Moses signing, same deal. So you go back to last year, Orlando Brown, 3rd round pick, develops in their system, turns into this guy that has the leverage basically to ask to be traded and get paid and move to left tackle. And they say, well, we can replace that. We know we can replace that. You're a good player, but you're not a $20 million player, which is the dilemma the Chiefs are stuck in right now. They, unfortunately, the Alejandro Villanueva thing didn't fully work out for them last year. But here they are getting Morgan Moses, who I fully do expect to work out. And you just look at Morgan Moses' play style. He's that 330 plus offensive tackle, road grader up front, is going to fit their power run system really well. They'll protect any deficiencies he has in pass protection, just like they did with Orlando Brown, with all the play action and stuff that they do with Lamar Jackson. And he's in here on a 3-year contract making $5 million a year, which is a quarter of what they were going to have to pay Orlando Brown. It is just, it is insane.
Value over and over again. I love that, so they drafted Za'Darius Smith in 2015 with a 4th round pick, right? He leaves, it takes like a 3-year vacation. And I was worried. I wondered where he would go. And I didn't even, for some reason, I'm like, oh, he left the Ravens. Why would he go back? For some reason, I wrote them off, not thinking he would. And then I'm like, oh, of course they wrote, like, that's amazing. It works out perfectly for them that they got him back. And I don't know. I don't know why. For some reason, my head, I just wrote him off. It was so stupid. And I'm glad he got paid a decent amount of money too. Like the Packers didn't want to pay him as much as he was owed, but he still was making like, I think, a 4-year, $35 million deal worth up to $50 million, I believe, if it goes well. So I don't know. He wins, they win. They can walk away in 2 years if he's not playing very well. I think he's only 30 years old. So everyone wins in that scenario.
So a lot of people saw that number and were surprised. And it definitely, I think he took less to go back to Baltimore because he knows he's going to produce there and they have a chance of winning.
Yeah.
It is definitely worth noting the back injury, though. I do think that's kind of why the contract is the way it is, where it's like if you are healthy, you will make a lot more. But if this back issue doesn't go away and you're not able to stay healthy, it's not going to cripple the Ravens either.
Yeah. He played like one game last year, right?
He played 2 games and then he came back and played like 8 snaps in the playoffs. And
yeah,
I think he graded out. I know he got a sack, but it was like a cleanup sack. But there is a reason he got paid less. I know I've got some Vikings fans that I talked, all my good buddies are Vikings fans, and they were like, really, we couldn't give Za'Darius that? And especially in the Vikings case, like they already have Danielle Hunter, who has this weird back issue going on. So there are teams that definitely medically wanted to stay away from Za'Darius, and that is also the reason the Packers chose Preston over him. So there is a reason for it, but as long as he can stay healthy, that's going to be a huge bargain.
I thought it was a lot of money, honestly, for him. Another $35 million of career earnings potentially is actually like, I thought he won. I thought he did better than I thought he got more money than I thought he would have coming off of a major injury like that. And it's hard not to be happy for him. Actually, he's going to finish probably set for life whenever he's done with his NFL career, and I love to see that. I love seeing players get paid, and I'm just happy for him. I know, like maybe the money's less than people thought, but in my perspective, I go, I'm surprised he got that much, and that's actually awesome. I thought he might have a 1-year prove it deal, honestly, to show he's uninjured. So for him to get 4 years, 35,
that's a great point.
Potentially more is awesome.
Speaking of players getting paid, or payers getting played. That'd be a great little
well, like
podcast segment
of payers getting played. Like, is it a bad move or a good move? Right, the GM gets
did
played.
The player win or did the team win? We should have prepared that from the get go. That's great.
Next time, or maybe next year. I don't know.
Oh man, that's so good. That's so good. The Buffalo Bills have signed Von Miller, 6 years, $120 million for a 33-year-old. Now, as I last heard, it is actually a 6-year contract. That's not a void year thing. It's not like Taysom Hill's fake contract where, on paper it's this, but the last 3 years don't actually exist. But the way Ian Rappaport was explaining it when it got signed was that basically it's a 3-year contract. That's where all the real money is. But if the Bills want to keep him around, if he's still playing well at 36, 37, 38 years old, he can play and his cap numbers will be very big in those years. So it's actually very similar to Trent Williams' contract in San Francisco, where it looked, 6 years. I think it was also 120 million or even more for Trent Williams. But if you look at the last 2 years, there's no guaranteed money and the cap hits are crazy high. So it is in a lot of ways fake money, but the Bills will hold his rights in those seasons. I doubt he plays that long.
He would be 39 when his contract is over. He's not going to reach the end of this contract, I don't think. But he's going to finish his career a Buffalo Bill, and that's good for him. And he's probably, look, I don't know if you want to get into already the details of this, but it's like you said earlier, and I'm going to say what you said, is that he can work as a mentor, but also they really desperately need to get after the quarterback. And they're overpaying for a guy who can bring not only leadership, but also a little bit of production, probably help their young guys. And they clearly view themselves as a team that is a game away from a Super Bowl. We need to do whatever it takes to push ourselves that little bit further up the hill. And they view this move as getting them to a Super Bowl.
100%. It makes sense in so many ways. It really does. And I will bring up that kind of the locker room presence is, to me, half of the contract here, half of the real worth of the contract. He's still a very good pass rusher. He's going to be their best pass rusher for at least the next 2 years. But he's going to bring that guy that the locker room can look to and say he's done it before, because there's nobody else on this roster that is Von Miller he can walk in with the 2 rings. Exactly. And there's something about that. And then I like it even more as a mentor to 2 young pass rushers in Gregory Rousseau and Boogie Basham. And Basham's pretty polished already. He might not necessarily need it, but especially for Gregory Rousseau, I just think he's a ultra talented, physical specimen. But the reason he fell to the back end of the first round was he just doesn't really have those pass rush moves, and that's what Von Miller is going to do. He's known around the league for being a great mentor in that way. So if I believe
Russo hasn't played the position very long, right? Didn't he switch in high school or something? He was a receiver, I thought. He's learning the defensive end position still to this day.
Yeah, he was recruited as a receiver. Yeah. So he played 1 year at Miami as a redshirt freshman because he redshirted to put on weight, and then played really well for all things considered, and then had the opt-out in 2020. So really has only played 2 years at that position. So if he makes Gregory Rousseau really good, you can't argue with, even if Von Miller's only getting 8 sacks and 40 pressures. If you look on the other side and Gregory Rousseau, and it's not all Von Miller. Gregory Rousseau's going to be a big part of that development as well. But I really do believe, almost as partial as a position coach, and even if they draft another guy, could be a mentor to him. So great move for the Bills. Let's talk about. Go ahead.
Well, it's expensive, but it's totally solving their problem, right? And anyone who's saying that's an insane contract, 6 years, 120 million, what are you doing? It's if they win a Super Bowl, it's all worth it. And at a certain point, you have to be all in. The same with the Rams were. The Rams have stupid, ridiculous money spent. They did it when they went to a Super Bowl and lost with Jared Goff, and they did it again with Matthew Stafford. But it's worth the cost, right? It doesn't matter what you're spending if you get that championship. no
and no
one's
one's
going to
looking
care.
back at the Rams and like, oh, what a bad move that they lost a second and a third round pick to get Von Miller. Like, no, he was a huge part of that playoff run.
Yeah.
They don't
If
care.
you win, no one cares.
Right.
So I think this makes it way more likely they win a Super Bowl. I don't know if you were going to move. I just wanted to move on to another team before we said that because I think it's unconventional. Maybe it's expensive, but also still the right thing.
Yep. And just one last little thought is that the Bills, they're not a team that's consistently going to be able to attract big name free agents. So when you can get someone that's willing to go there, it's a double win.
Do you believe that? Because Josh Allen, I think things are changing in Buffalo, and you look around the league. You're a top receiver, you're a top tight end, or whatever, an offensive lineman. You want to win. Mahomes, Denver with Russell Wilson, and Buffalo are like, and maybe LA with the Chargers. Maybe the Chargers are the most attractive place to go because they got a superstar quarterback in warm weather. But when you look at those, are like maybe the top 4 quarterbacks right now in the NFL that I'm most, if I'm a young guy wanting to play with. Josh Allen's name is going to attract people, I think, as the years go on too. And
100%. I mean, winning is going to make you attractive, but so is warm weather and low state income tax.
Yeah.
Like teams like Tampa is just, they can just basically pull whoever they want.
Well, Kansas City doesn't have that though. Like that's what's interesting about. We've seen it work with Kansas City where they're attracting people that you're like, really, you want to live in Kansas City? And they do because they want to win. So the Bills can still have a similar effect to Kansas City, even if they're not LA or Florida.
Yeah, I do think it is harder though. I do believe
for
that.
Sure, totally.
So the next team on my list here is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have been just kind of all over the place, just backing up the Brinks truck. And there's some stuff I like here, and I think there's some stuff to be critical of here. I think there's a balance. So offensively, they signed Christian Kirk, wide receiver from Arizona. They gave him a ton of money. We'll talk about that. They signed Brandon Sheriff. We talked about the value of adding good offensive linemen. They added the best one on the market, Evan Ingram. Kind of a flame out first round pick for the Giants as a tight end. Finally gets a quarterback to play with. Zay Jones, wide receiver for the Raiders, who's kind of slowly developed out there after not working out in Buffalo. So just loading up on talent here, spending, I don't even know how much money total, but did they overpay for Christian Kirk? Yeah, absolutely. Is Zay Jones the best receiver? Would I have given him that contract? No, probably not. But I do look at this and I think they got a lot better offensively. I think you're giving Trevor Lawrence in year 2 a really good opportunity. I still think they need a number 1 wide receiver, and I don't think Christian Kirk is that guy, but I don't know. You can nitpick the money all you want. Is the cap space even real? That's a great question. Like, the only thing is Christian Kirk is not worth that much money. So,
well, one thing, I think there's an out after 2 years if Christian Kirk is a total bust. You also can argue that, well, he's been playing with a ton of other receivers around him, maybe as a feature guy, not a number 1 outside receiver, but still as a guy getting the ball more. His numbers might go up. I look at it this way, is that's a ridiculous contract. Like, no one else is going to offer Christian Kirk 4 years, $84 million. I believe it's actually, he's making like 1.5 next year. Like, it's a while before the money kicks in, as far as I know. Don't quote me on that, though. I probably shouldn't have even said it. But what I really like is, if I'm a Jaguars fan, I would feel so glad my team is spending money and getting better players. Are they way better? No. Are they better than we have? Yes. And when you look back 5 years from now and go, man, would you rather be able to say, we spent a lot of money and gave our young quarterback Trevor Lawrence help? Or we sat and twiddled our thumbs and did absolutely nothing? I would be furious with my team if they did nothing to support Trevor Lawrence. I'd be like, I can't do this anymore. So at least I'd rather my team overpay people and get him help. And also, look, who wants to go to Jacksonville right now? Nobody. Nobody in their right mind is signing up to play for a dysfunctional organization. Yeah, great tax situation in Florida, sure, and Jacksonville's better than Buffalo maybe. But I wouldn't want to go play for them. You have to overspend in order to attract people. And then eventually, if you win or Trevor Lawrence is really good, you can earn the right to get people to want to come there. But you have to make yourself attractive. And part of the way to do that right now Well, you're really not in any other way. Just offer a lot of money, brute force it.
Yeah, definitely. Because you scroll through Twitter and everyone's just slamming Trent Baalke because that's the fun thing to do, and slamming the Kirk contract, and like, yeah, that's true. But I look at this now offensively, and I don't have too much criticism here. Like, I think they're going to potentially really improve, and I will say you're kind of double dipping with the overspending here when you look at the defense. Like the whole exchange of going from Foyesade Oluokun, or going from Miles Jack to Foyesade Oluokun.
Good pronunciation, my man. That's a tough one. I'm always unconfident when I say that one. I'm like, I'll do my best.
Yep. So I'm pretty confident that Miles Jack is a better linebacker than Oluokun. Oluokun's not bad. Like, he's a good run and chase linebacker. He's good in coverage. So is Miles Jack. Miles Jack's a little bigger. Go ahead.
Their fans are arguing he's a better scheme fit. The fans are like, well, Oluokun's better in our system. Miles Jack isn't great.
Well,
maybe.
Who is the defensive coordinator for the...
Let me read a message I got from a Jaguars fan.
Because I don't even know. Mike Caldwell. Where's he coming from? I actually haven't really considered, because last year I know they were going with kind of the Ravens style defense where they're blitzing a lot and man coverage. So Mike Caldwell is coming over from Tampa. I mean, I don't know. I guess he's more of a Levante David. Interesting.
Well, so
he's...
People are saying that Jaguars fans are like, look, if you don't like Miles Jack, you haven't been watching Jaguars games. I have been watching Jaguars games. Miles Jack is a good player. He's going to go now to Pittsburgh and be awesome and fit into their offense, or their defense, be incredible. And they cut him to save $8 million. Like, your leading tackler, who's an awesome player. I just think if you're a coach if your argument is we can't find a way to make our system fit with Miles Jack, you're probably a bad coach. I as a coach, I'm like, Miles Jack's a stud. He's 26 years old, in his prime, probably has 5 more good years left, but maybe 3 of his best years ahead of him. I'm not cutting this guy. I'm going to make it work with him and figure out how to keep him on my team because he's awesome.
He's a year removed from being pretty much consensus considered a top 5 linebacker and signing a contract to become the highest paid linebacker in the NFL. He's one crazy, stupid Urban Meyer year removed from that. He wasn't good last year. No one's trying to say he is, but we see players have rough seasons and bounce back all the time. And they take a $5 million penalty to release him. So you can effectively put that extra $5 million on top of the Oluokun contract. So you're now paying Oluokun $20 million to maybe be as good as Miles Jack. It's spending to spend. And I do not agree with it. And I think that is something to be critical of. And Miles Jack seems like a leader in that locker room and someone that would have been worth keeping around. So I'm going to be critical of that. And then I also just have some questions about the Darius Williams signing. I really like Darius Williams. He's been one of my favorite kind of underdog stories over the last couple of years. But when I look at their roster, they have 2 perimeter corners, Tyson Campbell and Shaquille Griffin. I don't see any signs that they would slide one of those 2 inside to be a slot corner. That would not make any sense. Neither of those guys have experience doing that. They are perimeter corners. So what this says to me is they look at Darius Williams, they see that height label of 5'9", and they say, oh, he's a slot corner. Darius Williams has never played well in the slot. Never. He didn't become a good player until they put him on the outside in zone-heavy systems, running off cover 4, off cover 3, where he can, he's not a good press guy. He's not a speed guy. So he needs to play off, but he's incredibly smart. So when he can read the quarterback's eyes, he can see routes develop in front of him from the outside looking in. That's where his strengths are. He has shown that he's not a good slot corner. So to me, they're paying him $30 million, 10 per year, to be a slot corner. And that's just really stupid. Like, that's not The way you maximize value is you identify players' talents and you put them in the right place to succeed. This is the complete opposite. You are overpaying for the wrong skill set. And I will be stunned if they are smart enough to, like, are they there? I will be stunned if they play Darius Williams outside, given that they have 2 good outside corners already. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on, because I think it's a good contract for Darius Williams as a perimeter corner. But just putting him at slot because he's 5'9" is not good process.
I'm going to take a question from my Patreon ready here because I have no other way to use it on my show.
Sure.
James commented on YouTube. I said, and then he found my Patreon and commented on my Patreon too. And I'm like, sweet, awesome. He paid $1 to write this comment. So I love that. He says, Miles Jack is paid as a middle linebacker. He can't play a middle linebacker. He's not smart enough. That seems insane. But he's a really good will linebacker in a 4-3 scheme. In R3-4, he's out of position. I just totally disagree with that guy. I think that if your system can't find a way to put Miles Jack in a good position, you're the problem, not Miles Jack. Miles Jack's too good of a player. Why can't he play alongside of Luakon? Why can't we figure this out? Like I just will never feel like you cut a good player and did a good thing here. I'm like, he's going to leave and be great somewhere else, and your loss, I guess. Did they not like? Yeah. Maybe they hated him in the locker room. Like there must be something more, because otherwise it makes no sense. I think honestly, just a bad move.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's something we're not talking about with injuries, like he did fall in the draft because he had a weird injury.
Or he wants out. Maybe he wanted to leave that we don't know about.
It didn't feel that way, but no. I don't know. It's either way. You're taking an L on that situation in my idea. So,
by the way, Miles Jack, I watched him in high school at Bellevue High School. Dominated
as a running back.
No, running back and linebacker. He before he went to UCLA, he was this incredible, like the best player in my home state of Washington. Like he just destroyed everybody. It was ridiculous. He was the best player in the Northwest for like his whole high school career, like freshman to season. So cool. Unbelievable player. Like I love the guy.
That's amazing.
He's awesome.
Wow. And then they also signed Lorenzo Fatukasi, who's one of my favorite run stuffing nose tackles. Now,
again, I'm sorry, that pronunciation's amazing. I just avoid these people, Mike. I can't say that name. I know.
Well, you applaud me, but I probably butchered it. But I just said it fast enough that I said it with enough confidence, and I said it fast enough that
like a piano player that plays the wrong note. They just keep going.
Just keep going. Yeah. But I will say it's a little suspicious. I have a little bit of a take here. Probably going to just be nothing, but I found it interesting that if you look up his contract, there's been no official announcement of Fatukasi's deal in Jacksonville. It was reported, I think, by Peter Schrager. And I love Peter Schrager. I'm not trying to be critical of Peter, but I just have a little bit of a conspiracy theory here. I think they signed Foyesetta Luakun potentially, and somebody accidentally said Lorenzo Fatukasi. Those two names, a little close. They were reported within 5 minutes of each other. I'm just saying. There is something going on there. I don't know if it's like it was reported and then Fatukasi was like, well, I guess I'm a Jag now, and now I don't know. It's just a little theory, but it sounds like he is a Jag, but I haven't been able to find like any official reporting of that.
Me either. I'm looking. You're right. There isn't any.
There's something, and we do see this occasionally as well, that sometimes guys will back out of deals in that legal tampering period and go somewhere else. So I'm going to hold off on that one. I wouldn't be stunned. It could be maybe the Jets are trying to keep him there. I think they like him. So we'll keep an eye on that. But supposedly they signed him. It was a good player.
There's breaking news. Whenever you're ready to move on to the next team, there's a breaking story I'd love to give you, but I'm in no hurry to leave the Jaguars.
What do you got?
The Rams were giving Bears receiver Allen Robinson a 3-year, $45 million deal that includes $30 million guaranteed. So the rich got richer.
Wow.
And the Rams got Allen Robinson as well.
Wow.
Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp. They're hoping to re-sign Odell Beckham Jr.
You got to think that's not going to happen now.
Probably. But, I mean, people are saying they're still, even after this signing, they're still working on Odell.
Wow. That's big. I mean,
and if you're Odell,
that's probably about what they were. That's probably about what they were going to give Vaughn.
Yeah,
it was about 15 a year, and they're like, "Well, we've got this. We've already set aside this money, so let's let's go get the best available free agent.
I
Wow.
guess. Well, and again, I think that if you're Odell, you're like, hey, I'm coming off an injury. I may not get a great contract somewhere else. So he might sign a 1-year deal to stay in LA, like a prove-it deal, to enjoy his life, be in a city he loves,
Yeah.
and it's very possible he could take a prove-it deal in LA.
I mean, I don't want to tie this back to the Packers, but they were interested in Odell. I mean, if you're taking a small contract, like maybe this is the opportunity to go get him.
You're begging. You're like, Odell, please go to Green Bay.
Please. Julio, Odell, come on.
They don't want to be cold, bro. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They don't want to be playing in 13 degrees in January.
What a turn of events for Allen Robinson, who has gone his entire career as the number one receiver with bad quarterbacks and bad teams. Now he's going to be drowned out, see like 10 targets next year, but compete for a ring.
He's going to have so much fun, though. Dude, receivers love playing with other good receivers, the ones I've talked to, because they know that mathematically it makes them better. If they got to cover him and me, oh, hell yeah, I'm getting one-on-one matchups all day, baby. Let's go. And then he's got Stafford throwing him the ball, the best quarterback he's played with in forever. Oh, man.
I'm curious to see what the Rams do on the defensive side of the ball, because
maybe they don't care. They're like, offense is defense, baby. We're the Ducks from the Chip Kelly era.
But in all seriousness, though, like, look at that defense right now. They've lost everybody. It's literally it is Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. They lost Darius Williams. They lost Sebastian Joseph Day. They lost Von Miller. I mean,
they're just going to score 50 points every game and not care about it. I don't know.
They only scored like 20 something in the Super Bowl. That defense won them that championship.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're just happy they won. They're totally. Yeah. I would be shocked if the Rams won another Super Bowl in any time soon, because they're going to deal with the effects of going all in on this last year for a while. Yeah. You can't go all in the way the Eagles did. Remember the Eagles? They went all in on that. Carson Wentz was on a rookie contract. They made a bunch of big moves that built a great team that won a Super Bowl, and then that team totally fell apart afterwards because that's how that works when you go all in.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chargers
would have helped if Doug Peterson was a good coach, but
wow, shots fired. Oh man,
yeah.
Can we investigate that a little more? I'd love to hear more if that's okay.
I came out pretty early in that was it 2020 when they fired him? Yeah, pretty early in that season. I came out very early and said that this is the worst run offense in the league. The take I kept going to was they led the league in snap to what the hell is going on plays, where guards are pulling into each other, running backs are running screens in the opposite direction of the blockers. Carson Wentz is throwing the ball into air.
They weren't buttoned up.
Blocking was terrible. Yeah, they weren't buttoned up. And that comes back to your offensive coordinator and your head coach, and that was Doug Peterson. And there was the signs of that leading up to that as well. I have a theory that Frank Reich was the mastermind behind their Super Bowl offense, and it all just kind of fell apart when Reich left. So,
well, also to be a head coach and a coordinator is really hard. It probably was really helpful for Doug Peterson to have Frank Reich to delegate to, who can get the details oriented. He can do all the details. I'll oversee the big picture, which is what a head coach is supposed to do. And I would imagine that. I mean, how can you lose Frank Reich? And I wonder, would they be better together to this day? Like, you see Frank Reich struggling a little bit in Indy. Not all his fault. You see Doug Peterson hasn't been as good without him. I wish they could get back together someday because they were so great together, you know? It's like,
Yeah, definitely. What else do we have here? So let's talk about Baker Mayfield.
Oh, man.
Can
I read a statement?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
So Baker Mayfield, on Tuesday, they were talking and meeting with Deshaun Watson. Baker Mayfield posted this. Cleveland, these past 4 years have been nothing short of truly life-changing since I heard my name called in the draft to go to Cleveland. This is not a message with hidden meaning. This is strictly to thank the city of Cleveland for embracing my family and me. We have made many memories and shared growing in this process through all the ups and downs. I have no clue what happens next, which is the meaning behind the silence I have had during the duration of this process. I can only control what I can, which is trusting in God's plan throughout this process. I've given the franchise everything I have. It's a little bit longer. That is something I've always done at every stage and every level. And that will not change wherever I take my next snap. Whatever happens, I just want to say thank you to the fans who truly embrace who I am and the mentality that aligns so well with this city's hardworking people. Cleveland will always be a part of Emily's and my story, and we will always be thankful for the impact it had and will have in our lives. Sincerely, Baker Reagan Mayfield. And a lot of people didn't like that. What do you think? Is that bad? A lot of people were criticizing him, saying that's like an immature thing to post. I have no emotion either way. It's fine. It's like, it's not bad. I don't think.
I know. I think it was, Steve Smith was on NFL Network. I saw this, and he was calling Baker a crybaby. And like, he was like he just went on this rant against Baker Mayfield. And I think it's all a giant overreaction, like to all of this Baker Mayfield drama, to this concept. It all kind of started like when he started playing bad. And everyone's like, well, everyone started acting like he was an impending free agent for some reason when he still had another year on his contract this year. There's like, what are they going to do? They got to figure out within the next 3 weeks if they got to pay him or not. It's like, no, he's under contract. The entire offense fell apart. He fell apart physically, didn't have a shoulder. You go back a year before, he had him in the playoffs. He won a playoff game. He was probably about a top 15 quarterback. He still has a lot of talent. I think he's a really hard worker. I don't know if he's for sure the future, but like
he played
thought
bad
it was
last year too. Like decision making,
very bad.
He played bad, and his shoulder isn't his brain. His brain is making bad decisions, right? Like I don't know.
But when you're under more pressure because both your tackles get hurt and you don't really have a receiver. I mean, they had Jarvis, but he was not getting open for him. He was not what you expect from Jarvis Landry. So you're gonna. So few people dodge surrounding cast, but like it's like lowering, if you have good blocking, you have receivers getting open. It's like lowering the difficulty sliders on Madden. Like it's just going to be a lot better for you. So, and it's so funny how things have turned, because when they drafted Baker Mayfield, my channel was just kind of getting started. And I was like, I got to have takes. I got to be, I got to get out there. And I said that the Baker Mayfield pick was the worst draft pick in NFL history. Because I thought he was Case Keenum with a stronger arm. That I think I had him at one point in time as the 6th best quarterback in that class. I eventually pushed him up over Luke Falk. Thank God I did that. Because that one would have been
well done by you. I appreciate that you would say that. A lot of people would never even own that.
Because I thought I was a big Josh Allen guy. I thought Darnold was going to be good. I didn't hate Lamar coming out. I thought Josh Rosen was a decent prospect. I thought Baker was well below all those guys. So I was like, what a terrible pick. And now I'm like here a couple years later defending Baker. It's, I don't know.
Have you seen the great meme of Sam Darnold? It's like, wow, Sam Darnold really throws a beautiful spiral and throws it right at a defender. It's like a beautiful throw.
Yes.
And then it gets caught and you're like, oh, that's a pick though.
Yep.
I love that.
Totally. But I don't know. I really don't know what to think about all this. It's all speculation. I think he genuinely loves Cleveland, and he's heard that they might move on from him, and he just wanted to show some appreciation. And that really is the end of it in my mind. I do think Cleveland would be really stupid to trade him for Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, what's that going to, the only way that ends well is if you draft a quarterback and develop them and you get better in a couple of years, which might be their process, but they're not going to win this year with Jimmy Garoppolo. So,
well, I got
Marcus
a couple
Mariota.
thoughts. Yeah, I think anyone who came after Baker for that statement is probably someone who's been sitting waiting for him to do something they could come after him for, honestly, because that wasn't enough for anyone to really criticize. The guy, he said thank you to a city he loves in a time of uncertainty. Like that, he references God. Like, I don't know how that's bad. I don't really, he didn't say anything negative. He said, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I love you. I've been really grateful for the time I've had. Honestly, if anything, an adult, like, kind of respectful thing to do.
Yes.
And
agreed.
I think right now, on paper, if it was Madden, I would tell the Browns, do nothing. You got a fine quarterback. You're not really going to upgrade. There's no one you can get to upgrade the quarterback position other than maybe Deshaun Watson. Here's the problem, though. The human element of all this. And you now still have to work with Baker Mayfield. And I don't think Baker's going to be aggressive and angry or mean to anyone in the organization. I would hope not, right? But how does that affect your confidence when you know your organization doesn't really trust you and doesn't really want you? Man, look at Tua Tagovailoa last year. With his team, also a Deshaun Watson conversation. His team was so openly courting and pursuing Deshaun Watson. How do you perform knowing that your team doesn't really want you? Look, I understand you're supposed to handle pressure well. You're supposed to, in that moment, pick up your big boy pants and prove to the world why you deserve to be there. But the quarterback position is weird because it's so heavily dependent on confidence, and the way you see yourself gets pushed outward to your teammates. And if your mind is settled and you're confident, it really can affect your decision making. You're like, I'm a badass. I'm Baker Mayfield. I can throw that whole shot against cover 2. Like, it affects every level of who you are as a quarterback. If he's not confident, isn't getting confidence from his team, that's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, and shame on Cleveland for having Baker Mayfield lose his confidence. Like, that guy coming out of Oklahoma was the swaggiest motherfucker. Like, how do you do that? So
you broke him.
Yeah. I have no idea where it goes. It's all speculation. I have no good takes on the situation, so I guess we're just gonna have to sit back and wait. I'll be pulling for Baker at this point. I would love for he's the worst draft pick ever take to continue. I mean, it looked bad at first. Now it's like, I kind of had some good points about that. Like, probably should have taken Josh Allen there, but I would love for him to go either stay in Cleveland and kind of get his moxie back, or go somewhere. I would love the idea of him going to Houston and them just being this ultimate underdog, just from an entertainment standpoint.
Well, that's a good question, though. Would you trade Davis Mills for Baker? Like, you might just stick with Davis Mills.
I don't think Cleveland has any interest in Davis Mills.
No, what I mean. I mean, if you're Cleveland, though, like, so if you trade Deshaun Watson to Cleveland, if Houston traded Deshaun Watson to Cleveland, got Baker Mayfield back in the trade, do they want Baker Mayfield?
Does Houston wants Baker?
Yeah. Would Houston rather have Davis Mills? You think they'd rather have Baker than Davis?
I would.
Okay.
I don't know. Davis Mills is an intriguing name, but I don't have a ton of confidence that he's ever gonna, unless you really want to suck again. Like, if you do genuinely want to go for Bryce Young, who looks so good, then yeah, just go with Davis Mills, because he's probably gonna be pretty bad.
I think he'll be fine. I think he's gonna be Matt Hasselbeck. Like, he's fine. He's not awful. He's not amazing. He'll run your offense in a fine way. I think he could end up being better than Jimmy Garoppolo, which isn't saying a lot.
Okay.
But I think Matt Hasselbeck's a good
you're kind of a closet believer in him then.
His decision making is really good, man. Like, he's very accurate. He gets the ball out quickly. He maybe is Alex Smith. Like, he doesn't, maybe not yet Alex Smith, but like, he doesn't make any like horrible throws. He just isn't ever going to be an athlete like Josh Allen or Justin Herbert or, all these Kyler Murray. Like, he doesn't have the physical skill set to be one of these next generation incredible demigod quarterbacks, as Brett Coleman would call it.
Yeah.
So he'll never be a superstar, but I think he could be a solid starter that is like a Matt Hasselbeck level guy who throw back to Seattle years ago. But I don't know if that's what you want in today's NFL. But he's fine. Like, he's actually a very good decision maker. He's very mature. I thought maybe you could even argue was the best decision maker. This is a guy who threw 300 or 400 yards against Bill Belichick. Like, I have never seen. He had the best day I've ever seen against a Bill Belichick defense from a rookie quarterback in the history of the NFL. Like, he's a good decision maker. Say what you want about everything else, but he's fine. He's like very fine.
I'll have to maybe take a second look, because
go watch that Patriots game, dude. You're like, this kid's a rookie? Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I mean, he went to Stanford. He's got to be smart. Okay, I only have one more team, and that's I just want to take a second to applaud the Raiders.
Hmm.
Which, you know, we had a really interesting conversation about the Raiders on your channel last week about you know, reacting to the Khalil Mack trade and where are they going and should they, you know, they never we said basically we agreed they never would trade Derek Carr, but maybe they should. And I think there's still something to that, but I will say they made the best combination of moves, in my opinion, that they've made at least since before Gruden took over, when they signed Chandler Jones to a 3-year contract, and as a response to that, they trade Yannick Ngakoue for Rock Ya-Sin. So in one fell swoop, they upgrade at edge, even if slightly. I think Chandler Jones is very good. I think he's slightly overrated because I only say that because some people think he's like a top 5, top 10 edge guy. I think he's in the top 20, but he's still damn good. I do think he's declining a little bit. He kind of was able to get paid off of just the Titans game a little bit, where he had like 5 sacks to start the year. And sometimes with like public perception, if you start fast, it just you're kind of up here from the get-go, and then, you know, it kind of inflates your season as a whole. He really kind of disappeared for the middle of that season. But I still think he's an upgrade over Yannick Ngakoue. And Ngakoue also only had 1 year left on his deal. So you are securing a potentially dominant edge duo with Max Crosby, who's a stud, and Chandler Jones. And then you're also able to use that instead of just releasing Ngakoue, you find a really good player for player trade. And they get Rock Ya-Sin, who's a good perimeter corner. I think him and Trayvon Mullen is going to be a good cornerback duo if they can get them back healthy. Hopefully Nate Hobbs can clean up. I know he had some DUI troubles and stuff, but hopefully he can get on the field in the slot for them. And you have actually a pretty damn good defense, dare I say, like good edge duo. You have a secondary that is coming together for sure with some good young corners, and Trayvon Merrick up top at free safety is a stud. You bring in Patrick Graham, who's a brilliant young defensive mind. I actually don't know how young he is, but I'm a huge Patrick Graham truther. I think.
Do you like Jonathan Abram, the
No, I think
safety?
he's terrible.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely terrible.
Well, I don't know why I like him. I maybe it's because he just hits really hard. For some reason in my head, I had this great impression of him, and then everyone tells me he's terrible, and then I'm like, yeah, I guess he can't cover. I'm like, oh no. But then
He also
maybe
misses a
I just
ton
like
of
him from
tackles.
Hard Knocks. I don't know why I like the guy. Like,
You
I feel
liked
like
him in Hard Knocks?
Oh my god, yeah.
I couldn't stand him. I
Really?
thought everyone thought he was so annoying.
I thought it was.
They were at dinner, and I thought Derek Carr was like giving him like the dead eye, like, you got to shut up, dude. You're a rookie. You are annoying as hell.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just wrong. I just because like when I look at it logically, I'm like, yeah, he is bad, isn't he? But then I'm like, but I saw this impression that he's good, and I'm like, I'm so conflicted.
If only more Raiders fans took that logical approach with him. No, so something I really want to see. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but Jabril Peppers is a free agent who worked with. He worked with. I was just talking about how much I love him, and now I forgot his name. Patrick Graham. He worked with Patrick Graham for the Giants, and he had a really good role as that box safety. And I think that would be that's like a missing piece on that defense. I know they spent a first on Abram, but that was a previous regime. Like, if they could upgrade that position, that's a complete defense. It really is. And even they had a 3rd round pick out of Virginia Tech, Divine Diablo, which is like the coolest freaking name in the league. He was balling out last year at linebacker. So
Divine Diablo.
And then if they could draft like a D tackle in the draft, well, they'll probably go receiver, but that's like the one kind of missing piece is like a D tackle. But
yeah,
man, I think that defense is going to be, they've come a long, long way in 2 years, which is, I did not think that would happen. They were one of the worst defenses in the league 2 years ago. And then offensively, you know, we kind of know what they are, but they're not bad. So I don't know. I think I have not looked at the Raiders and said, wow, the things they're doing make sense. I haven't done that in a long time. And I just want to acknowledge that to Raiders fans, because I have shredded this organization basically since Gruden got there. They're drafting, the way they've spent their money, they've drove me insane. And I always say my least favorite teams in the league are the stupid ones. And the Raiders are very quickly growing on me. They bring in Dave Ziegler, the new GM from the Patriots, and I think they're becoming a much more well-run organization. So I just want to give the Raiders a little bit of a round of applause. I still think they get their ass kicked in that division, but
Well, I have to revisit. You mentioned it, and it is just so impressive the value that they got for Yannick Ngakoue. For a team that once you sign Chandler Jones, you realize like wait, they're not going to keep him, are they? To still get a pretty decent trade out of it is very impressive. And maybe the Colts were like, look, we would rather
guarantee you can get him.
Yes, right. But to give up a player, I don't even know why the Colts would make that trade. It feels like a bad trade almost for the Colts. Where
I disagree. I think it makes sense. I think they were probably striking out in free agency a little bit, and I think the idea of guaranteeing you can get someone is underrated because you can never guarantee that you're going to be able to attract these guys, especially to Indianapolis, where you don't have a quarterback. And I think he makes a ton of sense. And he also you're reuniting him with Gus Bradley, who had a good year with last year. So
that's true. What are they going to do with their other corner spot?
Quiddy Pay too.
What's their other corner?
They got to figure something out there.
Yeah, it's like I feel like they solved a problem and added a new one. But I mean, maybe they upgraded. Like, does that make sense? Like, maybe they really needed a defensive lineman more. I guess.
I don't think they saw Rocky Sin as like a future piece for them. Yeah, I think he's in the last year of his deal coming up. They got to do something there, though. They definitely do. I mean, they have Isaiah Rodgers. It's fun player. Made some plays last year. I think he can start, but yeah, they have two huge holes. Well, that's not true. They have Kenny Moore in the slot, but they need another perimeter player. Maybe Rhodes comes back or Patrick Peterson. Maybe there's still options out there. If they saw Rocky Sin as a 1-year player anyway, it's not a huge difference to go get a Patrick Peterson or Rhodes or something on a 1-year deal. So I think that'll probably be a domino that falls after that. But I did like it for the Colts as well.
You want to talk about the LA Chargers?
Sure.
So they not only made a big move to go get Khalil Mack in that trade, they also signed J.C. Jackson, the leading receiver, leading defender as far as interceptions since 2019. A corner. Gave him a 5-year, $82.5 million deal. And
steal, by the way.
What?
It's a steal, by the way.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's like they got even better. And
yeah,
I just want to say, like, there's this brief window of time where they're dramatically underpaying Justin Herbert, a superstar quarterback who is, I mean, he's going to get a big contract at some point, but to have him on a rookie deal where you're paying him next to nothing for what his value is, they really got to take advantage of that window and try to make a Super Bowl run. And they are doing everything they can on paper to make that happen. And I'm like, wow, like that. I thought Khalil Mack was a huge deal. Then they got maybe another massive player on the defensive side of the football as well. And you're like, just geez, man, Derwin James, like their receiving core, their defensive line, their quarterback. Like, this is a stacked football team, which already I thought was stacked and underachieved last year. So I'm very excited to see what happens there.
I know I was doing a live podcast or a live stream reaction deal on YouTube. And do you ever live stream, by the way?
No, I mean to.
You got to explore it, man.
Yeah,
you got to explore it. It's a blast. But anyway, I made a little Super Bowl bet on the Chargers live because I was just like, this team's gonna, if they can figure out the right side of their offensive line, they are gonna roll. They are gonna absolutely roll. And I don't think they're out of the Teron Armstead market entirely, which would be so nuts. Players his caliber just don't hit free agency.
I'd love to hear. I guess we can move on from the Chargers. Like, I want to hear your hatred for the praise of Trevon Diggs. I know that like Trevon Diggs gets a lot of praise because he gets interceptions, and I praise J.C. Jackson for getting interceptions, but those are different interceptions. One guy's actually good at covering. One guy's more opportunist. Talk to me about your frustration with the coverage that Trevon Diggs gets.
I've always had a thing with interceptions because they are just the most overrated stat that people just are obsessed with. Trevon Diggs, yes, led the league in interceptions last year. And yes, he has some things he does really well. I think there's something to be said about his style where he kind of baits quarterbacks. Even in man coverage, he knows he's got that trail technique. He's got good makeup speed. He's almost like, oh, you got me. Like, oh no, I gave up the crossing route, and then he jumps it. But he does that like 3 plays in a season. And if there's another 80 plays where he's giving up big first downs, and he literally led the league in yards allowed per PFF in coverage, he got obliterated by Brandon Ayuk in the playoff game. Like, just Kyle Shanahan, who's just a genius, was like, we're going to run double moves on Trevon Diggs, and he is going to miss so bad. And they got him on they got a big chunk play with Ayuk over the middle. And then there was another one later in the game where he was wide open down the sideline. Diggs had him one-on-one. They just did a little stutter go, and he was cooked. And Jimmy Garoppolo overthrew him. That would have been ball game. That's just my thing with Diggs. I think he was first team All-Pro, Pro Bowler, and now people love him. So he's going to keep making Pro Bowls if he gets like 4 or 5 interceptions, and it's just going to continue to spiral. He's got Carson Wentz in his division now. He's got Daniel Jones in his division. Jalen Hurts. Like, he's going to keep getting picks. It's going to happen because of his play style. And there is some value to that, but he is not a top 5, top 10 corner. He is not a all-pro corner. I like understand voting for him because that's kind of the way it goes. If you get the production, you get it that year. But I don't know. I think it's fun to make fun of a player that is, or at least bring light to the fact that there's a lot of stuff that he really sucks at.
He gets beat a lot, lot.
A lot. The most, actually. So I would so much rather have.
If you're a quarterback, you're not afraid of him at all.
Right. I would so much rather have, for example, AJ Terrell on the Falcons, who did it with no help around him, was shut down. He gave up like 200 yards. He gave up like 30 receptions all year. He's got better speed. Sure, he might not have that ball hawking like ability to bait quarterbacks, but that's because he's got his eyes on the receiver and he's shutting down the receiver. He's not worried about picks. His job is to not allow receptions. So I would so much rather have like an AJ Terrell, for example.
You know what I love about Jerry Jones? He's going to give Trevon Diggs like 7 years, $200 million. Like, he's going to give him like this ridiculous, massive contract. I hope he does, because it'll make me laugh. I can't wait for the Trevon Diggs like $150 million contract to pay him. They're like, totally, and Jerry Jones is going to probably reference Deion Sanders and talk about how he's like the second coming of prime time.
That's like, so predictable.
It's gonna happen. I can't wait for that day.
Oh man. All right, I want to move on. We are supposed to be going out for St. Patty's Day tonight, so I got to try and get this up before we head out. But I do want to just quick conversation about some teams that are a little slow out the gate. And I learned my lesson last year. I was super critical of the Tennessee Titans because they were releasing guys. It was like, oh, they're going to be a bottom 5 team last year. I said that because I was like, Tannehill's losing everybody. The defense is losing everybody. And they kind of played their own game. They signed Bud Dupree. They signed Danico Autry. They got Janoris Jenkins. They traded for Julio Jones. Like, they kind of made it work as time went on. So I'm not saying these teams are losing free agency. I'm just saying they're slow out the gate, and I'm a little curious what they're doing. So it's more of like putting a pause on these teams. And the first one is the Tennessee Titans, which I think is noteworthy because I think they kind of looked at what they did last year and they are kind of taking the same approach. They let Julio go. They let Saffold go, Janoris Jenkins. The Jenkins move I understand because you're getting hopefully your first round pick back into that secondary next year. Can you think
Christian
of his name?
Fulton, I believe.
Well, no, Fulton was a stud last year.
What's he have with a
kid
weird
from
name?
Virginia Tech.
Yeah. Doesn't he have a weird name? Like, I'm trying to remember.
It's
Titans corner. First.
I got it right here.
Why can't I remember his name? I'm with you. I don't remember.
I know. Caleb Farley.
Caleb Farley. Who's the guy? Vindel Hinter. Some guy. Maybe he's from the Bears. Who's got like
Kindle Vilder.
Yeah, that feels like a made up name. Every time I hear that, I'm like, that's a real name. All right, not being mean. I'm surprised. I always get them. I think Christian Fulton maybe gets me like it's that same F sound. Maybe I don't know. There's some like reason in my head they're connected.
One thing I really want to do on my gaming channel is do a all name team Madden rebuild where I have the Foya Sadalucans and the Falorenzu Fadukasis and the Kindle Wilders and just see how my pronunciation game can do.
It's a great idea.
Pick up D Liner who plays D line out of Alabama, that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a great title because people will go, you'll say like my all name team or whatever, and people go, what does that mean? And they'll click on it because I'm like, I got to understand what what does that even mean? That
with all the thumbnail is all the different names like floating in the air. That's going to have to happen at some point. But anyway, back to the Titans. I understand the Jenkins release. I think they're totally comfortable filling in with Caleb Farley. They release Julio Jones. I actually totally understand it because he was set to make $22 million. And I think counting on him, I just think they can use that money better.
You can't pay that guy that much money and not have him produce at a really high level.
Yeah. They lose Roger Saffold at guard. So like they've created these holes with like their offensive line and at receiver. And I'm kind of eyes open waiting to see how they play that. Because if they don't refill those holes, they're not going to be very good. They might still win the South, but I think that's about it. I doubt you have anything else to add on them, but the Chicago Bears, this is a team that they're in this weird transition.
They're rebuilding, right? Like they got a young quarterback. What I don't understand is why they're rebuilding when they have a young quarterback. Why not build? Why tear down? Why not build up?
What I'm worried about is I do think battle scars are real with quarterback. You talked about confidence. I think you develop bad tendencies if you're constantly losing and have to push and you don't have good help around you. I think that is a formula to really destroy quarterbacks. And I'm especially worried about Justin Fields in that way because he is a quarterback that had bad tendencies coming out of Ohio State. And I think those could get exaggerated. So I understand the Bears' perspective of we got a new coach. We need to kind of clear up some cap space. We need to kind of take one step back before we can take two steps forward. But I'm just very worried. They lost James Daniels on their O-line. They have not done anything. They don't have a first-round pick. I'm incredibly worried that in doing this, you're going to destroy Justin Fields, and then you're going to be even further back.
I could not agree more.
And yeah. So that really worries me for the Bears. And I think they got to do something with this money they've opened up. And they spent a lot of money, by the way, on Larry Ogunjobi. Just why? He's a player that signed a 1-year, $6 million deal with the Bengals the year before. He's a third defensive tackle. He's a decent pass rusher. But if that's all you're going to spend, horrible process.
Felt desperate.
Use that on
the desperate move.
Yeah. After you just released Eddie Goldman and you let Bilal Nichols out of the building. I mean, James Daniels got half of that. And now you have this massive hole at guard. I don't agree with the way that the new GM there is handling that situation.
Well, I'm really worried that we're going to see Justin Fields not only play hero ball, where he's got pressure to make big plays and rescue his team, feels that pressure of being the man. He also could end up having no confidence in his offensive line. And the minute you don't trust your offensive line, it's over. Then you're feeling pressure that isn't there. Then you are taking snaps and you end up looking down instead of reading the coverage. And these are things that could really, you mentioned them, but those are the specific things that could really eke into Justin Fields' play. And those are things to look for with Justin Fields next year. Does he trust his offensive line? Is he comfortable in the pocket? Is he forcing throws to try to win games because he feels like there's no other way he can win? That's what you need to watch for. And you said that, but that's like very specifically what it is. And I'm with you. I'm really worried about that stuff.
Yeah. We kind of talked about the Colts. That one's pretty straightforward. Well, actually, no. Let's actually talk about the Colts for a second, because the level of impatience from the fans is justified at this point. And we all agree Chris Ballard's a good GM. But something I've talked about in the past is that he has been better than anybody as a scout in certain spots. He's nailed Kenny Moore, Darius Leonard. They went and got DeForest Buckner, Jonathan Taylor. Like, they have nailed Quentin Nelson. Like, they've nailed a lot of players. They have a core there. But my problem is that is a core built of non-essential positions. If you ask anybody around the league, what are the 5 most important positions for your football team? In some order, you're going to get obviously quarterback, edge rush, corner, receiver, and offensive tackle. Easily, those are the top 5. I can't imagine anybody answering differently. And they have failed miserably at all 5 of those positions.
They've always done helpful, really good players. Like, you have a guard. Amazing. Your tackle's terrible.
Yeah. And the other problem is they're now paying those players.
Yeah.
And that's your core. So you have this cool core that gives you a nice baseline, but they're not able to take that next step because they don't have great players at the positions that truly matter. They kind of got Kwity Paye, looks like a good player last year, and now Yannick Ngakoue. Hopefully that edge spot is now good for the first time in this new regime, so that hopefully you can at least have something there. And what's nice about the reason those positions are so important is those are the spots that elevate other groups. Like, I think edge and corner have a very, very much force multiplying effect on everything else. When those positions are kicking ass, you can really impact the game and everyone else gets better. Quarterback, that's self-explanatory. Offensive tackle and receiver really play off of those things. They all play off of each other. So if you can hit on those positions, then it's easier to bring in a random middle linebacker, bring in a guard, bring in a slot corner and a safety and all that stuff around it. It's much harder to go the opposite way. So they got to start figuring that out. Or I think Frank Reich's an awesome coach. I think Chris Ballard is a really great GM, but they got to prove it at some point. And they're not doing much. I mean, the Yannick trade was fine, but now they have a huge hole at corner as well. So
I worry that their owner, Jim Irsay, we talked about it on my show, right? That Jim Irsay, I think, is kind of the driving force behind getting rid of Carson Wentz. And so not only, I think, is Jim Irsay a bit of a hindrance at this point to the quarterback position with his impatience. I think you hit something that is, maybe we should say it out loud, which is that Chris Ballard is like, for people who want to feel smart about football, Chris Ballard makes us all feel like, oh, Chris Ballard's really smart. Ooh, he's nailed it. But when you put it that way, like, oh, well, they haven't gotten the quarterback. They haven't gotten a receiver. They haven't gotten a tackle. They haven't gotten, like, all the key points he's failed at. And so is he fool's gold? Is he, I mean, I don't like saying that because he's such a, I have so much respect for Chris Ballard. He's drafted amazingly. Right. He's done. But at what point are we like patting ourselves on the back for like, oh, this guy knows. He knows all the secret knowledge. And then we're like, but does he? Like, there has to be a point where he's held accountable or maybe at least held where we can be a little bit more honest about, well, he hasn't nailed the quarterback position ever in his time in Indy. And maybe because he thought he never needed to with Andrew Luck. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know that we're there yet where we come down hard on Chris Ballard and go, what is this guy doing? But we're certainly getting there.
I think it's this year.
Yeah. Where they're going to be bad.
If they don't, hard. Like,
they have no quarterback plan.
There's no easy answer at quarterback. Jordan Love, man.
People are talking about Sam Ellinger being their starting quarterback, and I'm like,
right.
All right. All they can do at this point is Jordan Love. That's the best move by far they can make. Jimmy Garoppolo is not an upgrade. At least Jordan Love has a lot of potential and talent. And I think Frank Reich, a former NFL quarterback who knows the position really well, he could develop Jordan Love. And Jordan Love, probably unlike Carson Wentz, has less of an ego and can be given some tough love. Carson Wentz apparently was unable to, he wanted to be the man without earning that, where he didn't want to take criticism. He didn't like tough coaching. Jordan Love does not have the right to have an ego. So you give Jordan Love some tough love, which is kind of fun, actually.
Yeah.
Tough love for Jordan Love. He can't talk back to you. Like, he has to take it because he hasn't done anything in the NFL yet. So Jordan Love is by far the best and only option for the Colts. Maybe Gardner Minshew we could throw out there as well. But it's either Minshew or Jordan Love. Jordan Love has a higher ceiling. Jordan Love has a lot of potential. If you're not going after Jordan Love and you're the Colts, you're making a huge mistake. Jimmy Garoppolo is a step backwards for them. I just would be so disappointed if that's their move.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Patriots are the last team on my list. Belichick, man, that Shaq Mason trade makes no sense. You're giving away a top 5 guard for nothing. And I think it's just Belichick, I think, has lost his touch a little bit. I think he did some good stuff last year, but honestly, he overspent a little bit. There were some moves that really didn't work out as well. Like, I think some of the moves, they worked, obviously. Hunter Henry, Matt Judon. But Nelson Aguilar, we all knew was an overpay. They probably didn't need 2 tight ends. They didn't have a very good plan in place to use Jonnu Smith. And now a result of that is they have to trade away one of their best players for peanuts to Tom Brady. Like,
it almost is like, did he just want to give Tom Brady an offensive lineman? It's like, did he just?
It's seriously.
It's the only way to explain it is like, was he just literally trying to help Tampa? Yeah, we already gave you Gronk. Let's give you another start. Like, are the Patriots not the farm team for Tampa Bay? Like, what happened there?
Yeah. God, just makes me sick.
A 5th round pick for a starting offensive lineman who's really good.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I mean, that was an incredible conversation, man. I mean,
kind of one thing about Belichick is that I worry people like him a lot and players talk really highly about him. And you can argue that when you say losing his touch, part of what that means is he's been so cutthroat over the years of like, if you do not fall in line, we get rid of you. And he's adjusting. He's trying to keep up with the new wave era. But I don't think I worry that as a player-oriented coach, Belichick is not going to be able to keep up with the Mike McDaniels, the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, the Brandon Staley's. This new era of coaching is so pro player, it's not even funny. Yeah. And Bill Belichick is trying to be a little more pro player, but it's not natural to him at all. And I think he's vastly way behind this new young age and era of coaching. And he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to win a Super Bowl in this new era of the NFL, which is very pro player.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best coach in, I think, sports history, arguably. And he had about 20 plus years of just true genius, but the game has changed. And there's in so many different ways. And that's like a whole different topic, but whether it's
it changed on Bobby Knight, it changed on every coach. You look back historically, right? Would the style from the 60s work today? No. From the 80s work today? No. Like, the game moves on.
Have you ever gone and just watched a game from 2006 after what we know now?
It's bad football.
I mean,
it's rough.
It's insane how different it is. It's I formation for first and second down. It's base defense with 3 linebackers on the field unless it's like 3rd and 10. It is not the same game. And I think schematically it's passed them by. I think the player empowerment stuff has passed them by. They're not very creative with the cap. They haven't caught up in that area. It's sad to see, honestly, but I don't see the Patriots. I don't know. I don't see a way out of this at this point.
That's a great one. Is that not only has the game been revolutionized? Is that a word? There's been revolutionary
evolved.
Stuff that's happened. The game has changed, right? So not only has it been more creativity on formations, more creativity in how you use players and how you empower players, but also, man, the salary cap's one that no one talks about. The tricks and little things that go on manipulating the salary cap to work to your advantage is insane. And the Patriots have done none of that. And remember, Bill is their general manager. That's on Bill.
It's on him.
Bill hasn't evolved there. I hadn't never thought about that. That's a huge like crevasse between Bill Belichick and how he uses the salary cap to his advantage and then the rest of the league.
Yep. Totally. I mean, you think the Bucks and the Packers and the Rams are trading away Shaq Mason because they couldn't find a way to get his contract on the team? Like, no freaking way.
Well, what
No way.
GM from 20 years ago is still a general manager today? Only Bill Belichick. He's the only person who hasn't brought in new blood.
Yep.
Man, that is
and
really
all new blood is left. Nick Caserio's gone. The Raiders guy left.
Yep. Oh, that's sad. Wow.
Yep. I know it. Like it's really hard to see because I think it is hurting his legacy just a little. It's hard to truly tarnish his legacy, and the fact that Tom Brady's winning while it's all happening, it's like we could look back on this and he doesn't get the credit he deserves because of the way it all happened after Brady left. But like those two guys together were the best dynasty that I think we'll ever see. And it's because of both of them. But I think people are going to forget how great Belichick truly was. But it is sad. Like
don't
my
you want to see
heart
him
is
win
like,
one?
ugh.
Wouldn't it be great if, like story-wise, I don't know that he can, but it'd be great if he could win another one. But I don't know that Mac Jones is all that. I don't know that, there's so many problems and questions there.
Yeah.
Where they're fine and they're going to win games, but enough.
Exactly.
All right, now you can end the show.
All right. No, that was good. I mean, that was an awesome conversation, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on, but I think this is going to become a much more consistent thing here. So I'm really excited to get this one out. I will say we are going to have a little fun in just a minute here. For those many of you that follow TFG Plays. Okay. We got something's going on here. Oh, his laptop.
Here's the hilarious thing, man. I can't even hear it. I realized about 20 minutes ago, my laptop isn't plugged in.
Oh, dude.
I still have 31%
that was the best moment. That was the best moment from the podcast last week is when his laptop dies. My screen goes black. We got it. We're safe.
Yeah. Just so funny. I
was
like,
your laptop died. My screen goes black, and he's like, "I'm a fucking idiot." Just in the middle of the podcast. Oh, so good. But we are gonna actually talk about a side passion of ours. We're gonna do a little conversation about video games. So I have my other platform, TFG Plays, which is where I do all my gaming content. So we're going to talk about our 3 favorite video games of all time in a conversation I think a lot of you guys will enjoy if you're nerds like us. So you can catch that on TFG Plays. That link will be in the description down below. So I had a little thought for the name of like a video games podcast because everyone says stick to sports. How about sports to sticks?
Say that again.
Sports to sticks. Because the video game sticks.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
I don't know. I'm workshopping it.
Yeah, I like that one. I think the best one we came up with was that accidental play the payer or play. Pay the
that's
player.
got to be a thing.
That's a fun segment, which is really complicated because your brain has to see it written out maybe to get it right. I'm gonna screw it up saying it out loud again if I try.
Yeah, I can't even recall, but yeah, that's gonna
pay the player or play the payer. Yeah.
Something
that's
like
it.
that.
That's it. No, that's it.
All right. Well, everyone go check out Strong Opinion Sports YouTube if for some reason you aren't already. And we're definitely going to be talking more in the near future. And that's all we got. I appreciate you all for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely.